because I can't even be accurate on the enemy when I've got, 186 milliseconds of lag, because EA, a fucking AAA company that spends billions of dollars on games, can't get their servers figured out anytime they release a Battlefield game. It's just dog shit every time the game comes out. Their Battlefield servers always suck ass on launch, guaranteed all the time. How do they not figure this shit out yet? It's like fucking shocked Pikachu face every time their game comes out. They're like, wait, what? How many people wanted our game? Wait, like 1 million people wanted our game?
No way.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today I'm going over some of the things that I think Battlefield could switch. 5 things that I saw when I was playing the beta, and we're going to go through those. To give you some background information, I've been playing the Battlefield since Battlefield 1942. They've been some of my favorite games of all time, and I grew up with these games, so I've played every single one up until now. So first thing I want to say is I understand this is a beta. This is also a multi-billion-dollar company, and we are now the official beta testers for the games that they develop, is really what it has become. I mean, perception is reality as well. So even though they may test it before releasing to the public, it doesn't always feel like that to the mass consumer. It feels as if we have become the official beta testers, really. And we're paying the company to do so, even pay in to get early access to the beta. I find it hard to believe that people would look back on this and think this was a solid beta that came out and it was fantastic. So my number one that I saw was spawns. One of the biggest issues I noticed was spawns right off the bat. So what they had in previous Battlefields is that if they had a hard objective that you could spawn on that you were, let's say, defending and the enemy team was attacking it, it would spawn you on the opposite side of that objective. That way you wouldn't be getting spawn killed. In this game, it seems like they completely threw that out the window, at least for the beta, and it was putting you in the same exact spawn point specifically. I don't know why they did this. I really hope that they tweak this and they change it back to how it was, because it's really frustrating when you are spawning in and just getting killed right away by enemies, when they used to have a system that you've been used to for the previous Battlefield titles where it would push you across. They need to fix that. And this should be an easy fix. I mean, it's something that they have done in previous titles. Movement. I know a lot of people were complaining about the movement in Battlefield. So movement speed, it's definitely increased because of the large nature of these maps. It feels almost like it's definitely more of an arcadey feel with how fast you move compared to the previous Battlefield titles. And not to say that the previous ones aren't arcadey, it's just this one seems like they were really trying to capture the Call of Duty crowd that are coming over to this game, because maybe a lot of Call of Duty fans are upset that they're going back to World War II and they're looking for that modern game. This is that more modern era that Battlefield is going for. So I think that's what they're trying to do with things like the tac sprint and the sliding, which we know that the sliding was in Battlefield 5, but the way that it's implemented in this game, I'll get into that a little bit later. So Battlefield really has a good opportunity in scooping up a lot of the players from Call of Duty, I think, this year, and I think that's why they decided to change the movement speed, mainly because of how large that beta map is and how large the maps will be with that 64v64. But if you really think about it, it would be such a pain to run around from point to point with this movement speed being slower than it is right now because of how large these maps are. Granted, you could argue, hey, there's vehicles, there's air assets that you can use to jump out, parachute in where you want, but a lot of this is very infantry based, and I saw a lot of people running from point to point rather than calling in vehicles. Now, the tac sprint we kind of talked about from Modern Warfare 19 really introduced that. We're seeing that make its way over here, where you're taking the weapon system from the low ready and you're bringing it way up here and you're kind of sprinting with it. This feels like a blatant call of familiarity for those that are used to Call of Duty, and I think that's the main reason why they did that. Now, the sliding, as I was saying earlier, Battlefield 5 has sliding in the game. However, in this game, it almost felt like when I first did the first couple slides that I was playing something like Apex Legends with how fast it was. I was really surprised at how quick it went. It's not nearly as long as Apex, but the initial feel and mechanics feel similar. I think this needs to be tweaked to lessen the length of slide and require more momentum, because it seemed as though I was sprinting for only 1 second and I was able to slide. Very similar to that in what you can see in Call of Duty with Warzone specifically, how you can sprint and slide very consistently to avoid getting sniped. So I don't know if that's the intent here. If it's to make players a difficult target to hit than previous titles, I'm not so sure. Overall, I think movement feels a little bit clunky though, and unnatural compared to previous Battlefield titles. It almost feels like they're trying to find their way into what they want to do, meaning they've held what they've been doing the last multiple titles. In Battlefield 4, 1, and 5, we saw different movement. 4, you could do that jump and serpentine movement, which was pretty annoying to try and take out. They got rid of that in 1, but the clunkiness of the Battlefield 2042 beta experience right now is definitely something they need to tweak. I'm not so sure like what it is, because there would be times where I was feeling like I was running in quicksand, and then there'd be other times that I was sprinting like a madman. So I'm hoping that they can find something, meet in the middle, and really try and flesh this out, make it a little bit more of a solid experience. Now, going on to movement within vehicles, ground vehicles and air vehicles, I have to say that it was a little bizarre, is I had people sprinting next to my vehicles when I was driving, and you do have like a turbo or a sprint. If you're holding the sprint button while driving, you will push the vehicle into a turbo mode where it'll go a lot faster, and I was noticing that that is insanely fast, especially the pickup truck that I was using. I had one guy jump on top of my anti-air truck, and he was able to sprint next to the vehicle as I was getting it moving at a decent speed, and I think that's a little ridiculous. That's where maybe there needs to be some type of balancing with the vehicle movement versus the actual sprinting. Now, helicopter movement, I have to say, felt kind of awkward. I've played the Battlefield 4 game mode. I've played Battlefield 5 with their Firestorm game mode where they had somewhat helicopters inside the game. This, it just felt kind of awkward, where times like the little birds, I felt like I had so much control over the helicopter, and then going to the attack helicopter, I felt like I had very minimal control, or almost I felt like I had so much control that I was losing control. I don't know if that makes sense. If you experienced the beta, let me know what your thoughts were on that, because it almost felt like the amount of control I had with the mouse and the keyboard felt like I was losing control because of so much that was going on at the time. Now, I didn't do a whole lot of flying in Battlefield 4 and 5, but I can tell you this, that it was a lot easier to control flying in those games than it was in this one. The UI. So the leaderboard UI, I feel like it's way too much to look at. A lot of information to take in, especially for a game that's very much going for that arcade feel. I almost expected something like this in, you know, games like Hell Let Loose, Squad, Postscriptum, Beyond the Wire, Rising Storm 2, etc. But jumping and checking the leaderboard, it felt kind of awkward. I know that they had needed to change something because the regular classic leaderboard that we saw in previous Battlefield titles didn't have 64 v 64, and this is a way for them to change it up a little bit, which I applaud them for changing something. However, I don't think this is it. I think it needs some more tweaking to make it a little bit easier to look at and to understand, rather than pulling that up and then looking for the data that you are looking for across the screen. Now, the attachment screen, I've heard a lot of people kind of talking about this, and I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts on this. This is my personal take. I don't like it. I think that it needs to be a tactical pro and con for the different attachments that you are running, and if you need to change it in game, there should only be certain areas that you can do that, not 100% of the time, all the time, with zero cooldown. That's something they could do. They could maybe make a cooldown, but my argument would be make it only available for specific areas that you have captured. So the objective hard site that you have captured, that is the only area you can go in, change all of your stuff. And I get why they're doing this. They're trying to streamline the gameplay, make it so that you don't have to stop in the menu, change all your attachments, and then go in. This is a way for you to have everything just go, keep that gameplay moving and streamlined, which I'm all for them changing something like this. This is a really cool idea. I love it. But the issue I have is that if I'm going into a building that I'm going to take from the enemy, and I have an ACOG on there, but I don't have the ACOG red dot attachment, and I just want to switch to a red dot, I think that should be a repercussion of your choices and what you're pushing. The tactical pros versus the tactical cons that you are going into, rather than being able to change it at any given point. And that's the gamble that I'm arguing for. If you spawn on your teammates, that's on you. You have whatever attachments you have on there, but if you want to change your attachments on your weapon system, then you have to go to an objective that you have captured, change it from there. So glitches, some of the things that I saw on glitches, again, I know this is a beta, this is something that is going to be worked out. However, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. So the glitches I ran into most were the inability to ADS on the red dot on top of the ACOG. That glitch seems to be continuously going. Anti-air rockets are flying in all kinds of crazy directions to hit their target, so the mapping seems a little off. The inability to open up the airdrop menu, so if I'm trying to call in a ranger or a scout vehicle or the anti-air or tank, I can't do it in certain areas. It just keeps closing on me. There's a lot of server connection issues. I was having a lot of lag. Players were rubber banding all over the place, and the ragdolls felt very wonky. There were times that I was seeing aircraft parts falling out of the sky, and gravity seemed to just be half speed for the vehicles that were falling out. But then you would also have bodies just flying way up in the air and trees flying way up in the air as well, which is very bizarre. I also had a couple times where I opened a parachute literally a millisecond before hitting the ground, and I completely survived because I opened the chute right at the last second. Frame rate problems across the board. I had some people coming into my chat and telling me, hey, I've got a 5950X. I have a 2080 Ti, 32 gigs of RAM, and I'm having nothing but problems running this game with frame rate. I personally have an i7 9700K, and I have a 2080 Ti and 32 gigs of RAM, and I was having a lot of frame rate issues as well. So I really hope that they optimize it as far as the glitches go and the visual bugs. This is all something that they are able to definitely work on. I just hope that the optimization is is great on launch, because this is something that I feel like it usually takes a month to 2 months for them to finally get good optimization for PC, and not even that, but consoles. The last thing I'll talk about is balancing. So with only 2 guns being able to be unlocked and then having 1 weapon system other than those in all the other categories, it definitely is hard to gauge weapon system balancing right now. So my biggest thing for balancing right now was the vehicle consumables that I saw. So I was running an anti-air truck, and I had an insane respawn rate with the rockets. I was able to shoot down so many different things, which you can see in the gameplay here. But the same thing with the helicopters and planes is that they had a lot of flares that they were able to launch. However, my respawn rate for the AA truck was shooting down these helicopters and planes much faster than their flares could respawn, which you could argue, hey, that's on the air assets for not trying to target my position and take me out, which they eventually did after I had killed like 5 or 6 air assets for them. But that's my argument, is that rockets replenishing in the air and missiles for aircraft, I think, was a little too high. It was an interesting take, because in Battlefield 5, we saw that you have to go back to your return to base or respawn area and get more equipment as you respawn. So you fly back into that area, it respawns all of your stuff, and then you fly back. And that's a good way of making it, you have to return, you can't stay in the fight the entire time, versus now it allows those helicopters to really just fly in a circle, wait for things to get up, or fly away just out of range of an AA anti-air asset, and then come back and then light up your area. What I think they need to do is go with that RTB, return to base or return to your spawn point, to either get a return on all of your equipment that you had used, or they need to slow down the replenish rate that these are being used at, because there were a lot of times I was using a helicopter and I was constantly shooting rockets. I couldn't believe the respawn rate on those. This is all things that they can tweak, definitely, so we'll see what they end up doing on launch as the game comes out in 6 weeks. Now, a quick side idea that I have, I think with the amount of people in this game, a commander role would be really cool. And for those of you that maybe play games like Squad or Postscriptum, Beyond the Wire, Hell Let Loose, then you know what I'm talking about with a commander role. Somebody that's in charge of the entire team that kind of tells which squad to go where. What I'd like them to do is take that 4 personnel squad, bump it up to 6 to 8 personnel, and then you have larger squads, and then the commander is able to tell you where to go, and you have a squad leader, and that squad leader can radio to the commander can radio down to the squad leaders, they can talk to each other, and then you also have the squad leaders being able to talk to air assets. So imagine this, you have a infantry squad that's down getting lit up by a tank, and one of them is a spotter, and they have a laser designator. They hold that laser designator down on the tank, they call in for air support, and then they can drop a smart bomb or a missile right onto the tank. I think that would be awesome. That'd be cool. And this could totally be a separate game mode too. It doesn't need to be attached to Conquest. It could just be its own separate thing to give people more of a team-based gameplay rather than more of that arcadey feel that Battlefield has. Overall, I have to give the beta probably 7 out of 10. I enjoy the overall feel of the game, and I think if it would have ran better, I would have enjoyed the whole experience a lot more. It feels like an amped up Battlefield 4, or if Apex and COD had a lot of influence on this game as well. I enjoy the larger map sizes to an extent. It creates a better feeling of not being bogged down by, you know, the couple of tanks or air assets that are constantly destroying an objective where a lot of teammates are. The 64 player really spreads out across the entire map, but that's where it can kind of feel weird, because if you're running from objective to objective, you may not run into a lot of people, and then all of a sudden you get to an objective that's popping, and then you've got 32 people there, and it's just a crazy gunfight, which is cool, and it's random, but it doesn't seem consistent, and I think that's where people may have some issues, and they may get bored running from objective to objective, just capturing rather than being in the fight all the time. So what were your thoughts on the game? Did you like it? Did you get to play it? Are you playing it this weekend? Please let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear it. Do you agree with my opinions on this? Do you disagree with some of it? Just let me know. Did it change your opinion on picking the game up at all either? Or are you still full bore getting Battlefield 2042? I know I will be. I'm still cautiously optimistic for the release, but we shall see. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Take it easy. Take care. Stay safe. See you on the battlefield.